an episode of Tea Talks with the Bleed in Dubai Educators Group. This is what happens when you try to be too professional. But what happens is what we're doing right now is we're just having regular discussions with Black educators in Dubai. That's actually a group put on by me. I'm Jes'ka Washington, your host, and it's a group on Facebook where we get to come together and network, talk, and build professional development. So what's happened is that we've noticed there's a lot of conversation around how do I become a teacher in Dubai? How do these things happen? What does curriculum look like? What is it like for families? And so because of that, we've created a season of Tea Talks where we're going to be able to dive in and really discuss some of the things, not only what does living look out here, but how do we look professionally. So today we're going to get to focus on, I want to teach in Dubai. How do I become a teacher? What do I need to know? And doing that today, we're going to have two wonderful guests. Our first,
Nzinga Ebron from New York.
Yay, New York. What is it? And then we also have.
And I am Crystal Borden, originally from Savannah, Georgia. Shout out to the seaport.
Yeah. Oh, that's what we're doing. Let's go ahead. Let's keep it. Yeah, let's keep the culture ready. So let's look at things in this way. I know we all have probably gotten an email from a friend or an associate that says, "Hey, I want to teach in Dubai. Are they hiring? What do I need to do?" So let's answer that question first. What does that look like if you want to teach out here?
So first, you want to do research. You want to look into every aspect of what it would be like to live and work in anywhere you go, whether it's Dubai or another country. You want to look at the temperature, you want to look at the culture, you want to look at the laws. You want to make sure that it is a place that is going to fit you, fit your lifestyle. If you have a family, or you're a single parent, or you know, all of these different things. Do not leave any of those decisions in someone else's hands. Because your experience will really depend on how prepared you are, right? So that's my first advice. Research the cost of living, research the salary rates, because a lot of people get out here and they can't afford it, even with all the big salaries. So just make sure you do your homework. Treat it like a job. Treat it like a job.
And so I would say after you do your research, let people know that you're looking. You need to complete a profile on one of the recruiting agencies. Get your CV in someone's hand. But let people know that you are looking, so that way when they are looking, they know that they can link up with you.
If you have a LinkedIn account, change the setting or the place to Dubai. So Dubai can pick you up and people who are looking can find you.
So I want to say that we do focus on, in our conversations, Dubai, but we also talk a little bit about the outside Emirates and then Middle East. So the first thing I would turn around and say is that if you're interested, open up your ideas to be interested in the Middle East, not just Dubai, because there's a lot of opportunities and there's wonderful things in each of those. But breaking that down, the credentials or qualifications that's needed in order to teach do different a little bit based upon if you look in private school, look in public school, depending on the emirate that you're going to, as well as the country. So going back to Dubai, credential-wise, what do you have to have or be in order to be picked up as a teacher?
Right. So there's two entities that govern the school. There's the Ministry of Education, which governs the public schools, and the KCCA, which governs the private schools. And so you got to go to their websites. Go to their websites, because honestly, they're still developing the education framework, and they change the criteria. So now there's a new criteria that everyone has to be certified through a certification program that's based in Dubai, where that wasn't in the place 2 years ago. And so they are constantly trying to formalize their system so that they recruit the best of the best, because they want quality education. And so definitely, in spite of what we say here, definitely go on the website.
Just go back to do your research.
Do your research.
Right back to that.
And the criteria is different. Now, being from certain places like the US or UK, if you have a license from those places, you have a little bit more leeway when looking for jobs. You also definitely need to have a degree.
Yes.
You have to have a bachelor's degree in either education or...
Do you have to have the TEFLA? to teach out here. No.
It really doesn't carry any weight here
in this region.
It doesn't at all. But you need to have a degree in the subject that you want to teach, or a degree in education. So like for me, I have a bachelor's and a master's in mathematics. So I was fine to teach mathematics even without a certification. They never asked me for my teacher certification because here that was fine. If you don't have those things, then it's going to be slim pickings. It's not going to you're not going to get the best job at the top schools
that are hiring
because
will be great experience.
Well, and I'll say in this way that I'm one of those people. I'm alternate certified and been teaching 17 years. And of course, when we first looked at just coming overseas, it was like, oh yes. And I have my certification. Been certified in 3 states. I keep a certification. However, my bachelor's is in broadcast journalism, which also I don't think translated to them that was also English. Like you don't know who's reading your resume, and that makes a very big difference.
Or even the fact that you use the word resume.
Yes, not
they
CV.
Know, they know. You say, here's my resume. They're like, what you want to resume?
Right.
No. So CV. You never know who's reading your CV.
Never know who's reading your CV. And then for me, it was because I had the master's in educational leadership that I was able to start having conversations. So that part is very, very, very specific in knowing that they look at your bachelor's. Even if you have teacher certification, it's not really paid attention to as much depending on what your bachelor's is. And then we get questions on, well, my bachelor's is in English, but I've been teaching science for the last 7 years. Babe, you're going to come over here, you're going to teach English. You're going to teach English. And so understanding that is a piece. So it's not that you're not hireable, it's not that you're not noticeable, because no one has these conversations. Like, that was my thing. The first time I tried to come out here, oh, they just don't like black women. That was not, I didn't have the right credentials. And so what does happen though, you're open to other countries. Every country has these things. So when we talked about the credentials a little bit more, you kind of said something about it depends on the type of school that you're going to be at. Okay, so ding ding ding, what do you mean the type of school?
Okay, so I'll let you talk about KCCA.
Okay, no worries.
But just in the general sense, there are tiers. So they have the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 schools. And it really just depends on the makeup, the cultural makeup of the school. And so if the school is truly an international school, meaning there's multiple nationalities represented in the student body, the teaching staff, the leadership, then they're going to request and mostly require top educated, top qualified educators.
And pay top salaries.
And they will pay you very well. The benefits package.
I would say package. Sometimes you have to trade off.
Yes, will be exceptional. But it's also a lot of work because they are replicating or trying to replicate the quality of education that you would get in US, UK, Finland. That's their purpose. The tier 2, tier 3 schools, they're a little bit more homogeneous. And they also are replicating the education, but from the culture that is the majority there. And so depending on your temperament, depending on what your skill set is, you have to decide, what am I prepared for? Am I ready to do the work for a tier 1 school, or can I exist in a tier 2, tier 3 environment?
So we're throwing true education. We're just throwing acronyms out. Tax, TIPS, math. What is KHD?
Oh, yeah. I'm about to say those are 4 letters everybody should know if you want to be in education in Dubai.
Yes.
Okay. And KCCA is the Knowledge and Human Development Authority. They are the government educational body here who oversees the private schools. So you have British curriculum schools, French schools, Canadian schools, and then you have, Indian, but you also have American schools. And so KCCA has a framework on the expectations that they have across several different indicators. So they're looking at learning skills, they're looking at governance, they're looking at self-evaluation, they're looking at progress and attainment. Basically, what are we doing for these schools? And for each of those indicators, they have different levels. So you have weak, acceptable, good, very good, and outstanding.
And there's 8 outstanding schools, right?
I haven't seen. I don't remember.
Yes. It's very. I will say this: it is very selective and it's hard.
Yes.
You have to put in the work. Yes. When people get to those levels, baby, they don't play games. They're not trying to come down.
And so I haven't seen I gloss over the
new ones.
Yeah, the new ones. But I know I used to.
And the rating systems are out. They are public knowledge. You can literally type in khda.gov.ae
and you can go and
find
read the school. And that's one of the things that I would suggest. Go and read the school's report because that lets you know how they're doing in different areas. And it kind of gives you an indication of whether or not it will be a good fit for you.
Right.
Based upon the teaching body, the leader.
Yes.
I mean, because they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you the turnover. They're going to tell you the student-teacher ratio. All of those things are going to be in that report.
Those reports are super valuable, which I knew nothing about coming out here. It's like you know these things now. The other piece I would add is that not just to look at this past years, but to look at the last 3 years to see what the trend is of the school. For instance, I know of a school that has a weak report, but when you looked at the last 3 years, they were constantly making those modifications, and I do believe that they received acceptable this year. And so you're trying to find out if you're going to a place that's thinking progressively about education, or am I going to a place that's okay with getting by?
And those are usually the schools that are doing a lot of recruiting. So you're looking at your acceptable and your weak schools that are trying to move up to good to be in line with the national agenda.
Let's stop there.
So,
what do you mean the national agenda? Because that piece is very, very important actually. What is the goal of the national agenda? Why must schools be good?
Because Sheikh Mohammed, who is the, actually his name is Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, he is the vice president of the UAE, vice president and prime minister of the UAE, ruler of Dubai. So that's all of his titles. I think I got it. He set the UAE National Agenda of Vision 2021 to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the country's founding. And so across all sectors, they're looking at healthcare, they're looking at education, they're looking at economy. He wants first-rate education coming out of the UAE. That means Emirati students are not going to acceptable schools. He wants Emirati students in good schools. He wants a
Emirati. This is our first episode. We will say Emirati a lot. What are Emiratis?
Oh, Emiratis are like the citizens of this country. So where I'm from, we would say locals. I don't really like that title, so I always say, Emiratis. I mean, he wants all schools to be good, but
there's a
special emphasis.
And I say it simply when I explain my teachers, because I think sometimes we get concerned, like, isn't that discrimination? And the situation is that there is a promise that this country is given to a next generation. The promise goes to those Emirati students. They are born from here. That is their bloodline. And there is a look to say that you have to take care of us in the future. What does your education look like? And you are not going to have a weak education. So that's how we kind of look at with Emirati students. So Emirati students will not be allowed to go to any school that's rated under good in 2020 or 2021?
2021. It coincides with the 50th anniversary, and that's the goal. And so KCCA is monitoring it. Schools have known about these things for years.
5-6 years.
I came in 2013, and we knew about it. We knew about the goals then. It was publicly put out in 2014, and these were the expectations.
And we just received emails that they are enforcing these goals this year, much harsher. I'm not going to say harsh in a bad way, because just know, there's no public meetings or any of those. Like, it's not harsh. Learn, child. Learn. No. But we're saying is that it's not a goal. it's an expectation.
Right.
And so what happened is emails went out to parents that basically notified them of the ranking of
your
the school. And
so if your child went to a school that was acceptable, you got an email that said, hey, your child is in an acceptable school. The expectation is for all Emirati kids to be in good schools. Here are lists of good schools that are in your area, and then they encouraged you to do it for your child, to do it for your country.
That was it.
And so that stung a little bit for a lot of people, because if you're at an acceptable school and you have plans to move up, and I think KCCA has said for the last how many years we have been telling you guys, and you guys are not taking it as seriously as you should, because education in school, as it was when we went through, it's not acceptable anymore. We're looking for innovation. We're looking for enterprise. We're looking for more education. We're looking for you to teach UAE social studies. Are you doing these things? Are you allowing kids to grow and attain and to progress?
The thing is, those things are very expensive. So a lot of owners were trying to give the least and get the most. But now they don't have that option. They can't increase their rating. Their fees are dependent on their ratings. So there's a lot of pressure now. So the owners are properly motivated to make sure they're recruiting the best. So if you're the best, then you come on over. If you are a specialist in turning around schools, this is the best place for you to be. If you have the right credentials, this is the best place for you to be. And most schools right now, because they have 2 years, I think, or 1 year. 1 year, it looks like. Essentially. They're properly primed, motivated to bring you on board and let the progress happen, let the work happen.
so that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that now we're talking about, I want to work in Dubai. You have these excellent, outstanding schools. I want to go to one of those schools.
Well, you know what? Those schools are outstanding and very good for a reason. And one of the reasons is because they have structures in place. Their teacher turnover is typically lower. And so you're not, they won't have the vacancies that other schools will have.
As well as what I've noticed is majority of those schools have already hired. They pretty much know in October or November if they run in a tight system who's there. So it's not that you can't. It's if there's an opening and they call you, baby, go. Go.
ASAP.
But the schools that are looking, and it's going to kind of be weighed, I'm going to say, are your schools that are good, who probably just got good and trying to hold on to it. And your acceptable schools who are this close to trying to figure out how to make it. You will probably get weak schools. The issue that you run into is then the money. Because remember, if I'm rated weak, I can only charge so much. And being American, being whatever nationality you have, also dictates the type of package that you can request. And sometimes when you don't have enough, you can't ask for a certain type of package from your people. You wanting them to come, like, you don't want to share a 4-bedroom?
No, I need single accommodations. So that's another discussion about when you go through your contract, you need to see what your benefits, what are you getting? Because when you come over here, you better believe you're going to work for that money. It's not that you're just going to be traveling. I'm going to see the pyramids, the Taj Mahal. I'm enjoying my life. You going to work for it. Because most of the time, the structure for those schools are not put into place. And so going to expect you to come in and as the American or the Western trained teacher who knows how it's supposed to be, and you are expected to help.
So let's talk a little bit about American, and I wanted to say this earlier. We talked about, school is American curriculum. Does it look just like American schools?
So you gotta listen to the code word. American curriculum doesn't necessarily mean an American school, and so that's important. And really, their ratings depends on how well they implement that. And so, an American curriculum school that's weak is not an American school at all.
They have standards that came from America,
and that's it.
And that's what I want to say. Even the word curriculum, you have to be careful about that, because I remember remember walking into the school and we had white paper.
Yes.
And that's all we had.
Yes.
And then being assigned grades 6 to 10, and I'm like, okay, well, what subject am I teaching them?
Right.
Math.
Yes.
Math what? I mean, especially when you get in the high school, we have
different
specific,
disciplines.
math. No, I don't understand just math. And then I'm prepared.
Yes.
I am not prepared, but I'm required or expected to deliver outstanding lessons, and I have standards in white paper.
Yes. So that's a big difference. There are true American curriculum schools. Again, do your research.
Look at those reports,
because it will tell you. And there are schools that don't count out the good schools or even some of the acceptable schools. Because the KCCA has this one stipulation that if you don't do Islamic or Arabic correctly, they can't rate you above a certain level. So a school could be great for your child, your American child, for you and your mentality, but it doesn't do the Arabic and Islamic
because that's a requirement.
Because that's a requirement.
So,
and it's still a suitable environment.
Looking at this, it's really more conversation. It's really just more conversation. And when we talk about a school that's American curriculum, what we first have to say a little bit is we have to understand the history. We're talking about a country that's educational system is 40 to 45
I wouldn't
years
even
say that. I'm looking from the 90s.
From the 90s. So from the 90s, pay attention, from the 90s is the first time we instituted school. School. We're going to have school. And then if we talk about the history a little bit and we talk about private schools are schools that are ran for money. So therefore you have to have an owner who says, I want to have a school because this is another one of my businesses that I want to run. So the governing body that we have now with KCCA is now telling owners who originally just created this for business purposes now how to become educators. And one thing I will say is, I know it's the case for my school, a lot of the people on the board do not have an education background. Therefore, that's where you get into the conflicts of your resources or your understanding and where frustrations happen. And I say this not to talk about the country. I'm saying this that when we come in with our understanding that we take things for granted. We have an expectation of, oh, if it says school is going to be run this way, such and such, such and such. And I'll give you a very basic one was changing of classes. Yes, like, wait, the kids stay here in the same class. It all depends on your school, but it depends on those different things. So one of the key things I would say is really going back to what was said earlier, the networking. Finding yourself into Facebook groups and and not holding judgment on, well, this is not right. Can you work within these parameters? Can you work with this? Because even though there's a lot of frustrations that might come, one, we have those same frustrations in America. We have those same frustrations, as well as can you get what you need out here as well?
Your most important goal, whether going abroad anyway, is just bridging the gap. But there's always going to be a cultural gap, and the better you're able to bridge that cultural gap, the better your experience will be.
That's actually so awesome. Do you have anything else that we just need to kind of state or say in regards to this?
Now, just build your network and connect so that way you can get the inside scoop. Because everybody's going to post pictures of them traveling, myself included, the glitz and the glams, the Lamborghinis, the Maseratis, you know what I'm saying, the gold on the wall. Everybody's going to post a picture of that. And then when you get here, you're going to be like, I can't figure out how to get my driver's license. So you want to make sure that you are connecting with the network of people who are here and who will share those things with you. So kind of navigate through life.
Absolutely.
So saying all of those things, that's why we're here having our tea talks. Because we're going to go ahead and continue having conversations for our educators that are concerned about moving, wanting to know what that looks like, and professionally really want to dig in. There are so many more talks coming up, and just sitting here and having this wonderful tea time. So until next time, let's
see you.
Raise a glass.
You know we do tea over here.
Yes, we do tea. But just once again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for tuning in. And we'll continue these conversations. I've been your host, Jes'ka Washington. Thank you for tuning in.